Hello viewers, I am back with another episode of Bhaskar's Insurance for You and Me series. In this episode, we will discuss about how the payable claim amounts are calculated in health insurance. In most of the health claims, the claim amount paid by insurers is less than the total expenses incurred. Why? This is an important question. This episode will help you to understand the answer for this question. Before deciding on the claim amount, the first step in claim processing by any insurer is to decide on the admissibility of claim itself. How does an insurer determine the admissibility or otherwise of a health claim? For a claim to be admissible, the insured person must have undergone treatment as defined in the policy, and the cause of treatment should not be falling under any of the exclusions in the policy. The aspects like what is covered under health insurance, what is the meaning of treatment, hospitalization, daycare procedures, etc., were all discussed in our earlier episodes. Similarly, what is pre-existing disease exclusion, what are the waiting periods, and other major exclusions were also discussed. Now, from the documents submitted by the insurer will examine the details of treatment to see if that is within the policy scope as specified in the wordings. To ensure that there is hospitalization, there is treatment, and the treatment happened during the cover period. The insurer will also examine the diagnosis and the period of insurance to see if the diagnosis falls under any of the policy exclusions. The insurer will also go through the information in the discharge card and other hospital documents to see if there has been any past history of sickness, etc., to compare with the underwriting documents like proposal and determine if there has been any non-disclosure or false disclosure by the insured. You are well aware of the implications of such non-disclosure as we have discussed this in our episode 13. The steps involved in calculation of claim amount is as follows. The first step is to prepare a list of item-wise summary of the invoices showing the head of expense and the amount charged. The items would mainly consist of ambulance charges, room charges, ICU charges, professional visit charges, laboratory test, that is pathological charges, surgeon charges, anesthetist charges, implant cost, medicine charge, etc. etc. And the next step is from the list, omit the items which are not covered under the policy as non-medical items. So the list of such non-medical items is available as annexure to the policy issued to you. Examples of such charges are the telephone charges, guest services, walking aid charges, extra diet charges, etc. The next step, from the policy document, check if there is any item-wise sublimit like ambulance charge sublimit or room rent sublimit, etc. If yes, apply these sublimits to the invoice amount to arrive at the payable claim for those expenses. For example, if the invoice for room charges show the amount as rupees 15,000 for 3 days of hospital stay, and the policy has a room rent sublimit of, let us say, rupees 3,000 per day, the amount payable for room rent is worked out as rupees 9,000. That is rupees 3,000 per day for 3 days. So naturally the disallowance on this account will be rupees 6,000. The next step is to look at something known as a proportionate deduction clause. Some of the policies have a policy clause called as proportionate deduction condition, which is relevant in the claim computation. A sample wording for proportionate deduction clause I have shown on the screen. Proportionate deduction is applicable on the associate medical expenses if the insured person opts for a higher room than his eligible category. It shall be affected in the same proportion as the eligible rate per day bears to the actual rate per day of room rent. However, this deduction is not applicable on the cost of pharmacy and consumables, cost of implants and medical devices, and the cost of diagnostics. For this purpose, the associate medical expenses means the medical expenses such as professional fee of surgeon, anesthetist, consultant, specialist, etc., etc., operating theater charges, procedure charges like dialysis, chemotherapy, and similar medical expenses related to the treatment. So, in the example of room rent, what I have shown above, the insured person is admitted to a room category costing rupees 5,000 rupees per day, whereas the room category eligible by him is of rupees 3,000 rent only. So the eligibility works out to a proportion of 60% on the total cost. Hence, if the policy is subjected to this condition of proportionate deduction, the associate medical expenses like professional fee will become payable at 60% of the amount incurred only. The claim amount to be paid is accordingly reduced for the associated medical expenses. This will become more clear when we see the example at the end of the presentation. The next step, after making the above changes, calculate the total admissible claim amount. That is after removal of non-medical items and applying the item-wise sublimits. Now we need to examine if the policy is having any copayment or deductible clause, and this needs to be applied on the claim amount worked out. The next stage is to check for applicability of any specified procedure-wise sublimit, like sublimit for cataract or hysterectomy, etc. What is the meaning of this specified procedure-wise sublimit? We have already discussed earlier. If the claim is for such specified procedure and the amount worked out in the steps above is higher than the applicable sublimit, the claim amount stands reduced to the sublimit level. The final stage is to ascertain the applicable sum insured under the policy and limit the claim amount to the available sum insured only. In case the claim amount calculated comes higher than the available sum insured. So while calculating the available sum insured, we need to consider the policy sum insured applicable for the insured person, cumulative bonus, additional sum insured available due to clauses like restore, recharge, etc., and reduce the same by the amount of past claims paid under the policy. Now for clarity, I am showing a working of a hypothetical claim. I've shown the policy details here. It's a policy with sum insured of 3 lakhs with a cumulative bonus of about 15% of the sum insured, with a room rent sublimit of 1% of sum insured per day and copayment of 10% for each and every claim. This policy also has got a procedure-wise sublimit for cataract of rupees 40,000 rupees, and proportional contribution clause is applicable. There has been no claims under the policy prior to the current claim, and the policy is in force for last 5 years. Since the policy has been in force for last 5 years, most of the waiting period exclusions are not applicable, so that claim is admissible. So if you see here, the room rent we have sublimited based on the policy condition. The professional charges have been deducted because of the proportional contribution clause, and we have also applied the copayment. As we can see, though the total expense incurred is rupees 50,000, the payable amount is working out to rupees 37,800. However, if the insured has taken a policy where sublimit for room rent, proportional contribution clause, and procedural sublimit are not applicable, the claim payable would have been rupees 50,000. Hence, depending on the policy condition, the final claim amount payable gets reduced when compared to the actual amount spent by the insured. This difference between the claimed amount and the actual claim amount paid can be minimized if we take care to opt for products with least limitations at the time of choosing the insurance plans. Now the question which will come to you now is this calculation logic applicable for cashless claims also? And considering the latest decision of the insurers to provide cashless settlement of claims for all claims, is the above working relevant anymore? The categorical response to this query is it is relevant. Irrespective of whether the claim is settled as reimbursement or cashless, the policy conditions do not change. Hence, in case of cashless claims, The amount which will be paid by the insurers to the hospitals directly would be working out based on the above logic only. The difference amount between the total cost of treatment and the claim paid by insurer to the hospital will have to be borne by the insured. It is important for the customer to be aware of the limitations of cover and computational logic. It will help them to understand the limitations of cover in different products and make a conscious choice of the product. It will also make customer aware of the requirement of their contribution to the claim. So in this episode, we have seen the claim calculation method, which will help you in understanding the cause for difference in the amount claimed and the claim received. We will continue the discussion on health insurance in next episode with some more details on the products. Until then, bye from Bhaskar.